There is one truth that no human being can escape: pain. Pain from relationships, pain from betrayal, pain from those we trusted most. I remember sitting alone after experiencing a stunning betrayal from someone I had invested in for years. The weight of that moment threatened to crush my spirit, to define my future. But in that darkness, I discovered something powerful. The people who hurt you don't determine your destiny. Your response does. Listen to me carefully. The ability to handle people who hurt you may be the single most important skill you'll ever develop. Why? Because as long as you live among humans, you will experience hurt. It is not a question of if, but when. The real question is, will you be prepared? Many of you sitting here tonight are carrying wounds from people who should have been your protectors, your supporters, your friends. Some wounds are fresh, bleeding with every thought. Others have hardened into scars that limit your movement, your freedom, your potential. I'm here to tell you that those wounds do not have to define you. They can refine you. You see, your greatest power lies not in avoiding pain, but in your response to it. The way you handle hurt doesn't just affect your past, it shapes your future. Every relationship that brings pain also brings possibility, the possibility of growth, of deepening, of transformation. I'm not here to offer you escape from pain. I'm here to show you how to transform it. Tonight I want to share with you 5 proven principles for handling people who hurt you. These are not theoretical concepts I've read in books. These are battle-tested strategies I've seen transform thousands of lives, including my own. Apply these principles and you won't just survive the hurt, you'll transcend it. The first principle is fundamental. Recognize that your value is not determined by others. This is where most people make their first critical mistake. When someone hurts us, we unconsciously give them authority over our self-worth. We think, if they could treat me this way, perhaps I deserved it. Perhaps I am not as valuable as I thought. This is a dangerous illusion. Your value was established long before anyone had the chance to hurt you. Your worth is intrinsic, permanent, and non-negotiable. When you allow others to determine your value, you hand them a power they were never meant to have. I once counseled a brilliant young professional who had been repeatedly overlooked for promotion. Each time she was passed over, she internalized the rejection. She began to dress differently, speak differently, even think differently, all in an attempt to match what she thought others wanted. By the time she came to me, she was unrecognizable even to herself. She had allowed others' actions to redefine her. Over 6 months, we worked to reconnect her with her intrinsic value. We identified her core strengths, not as others saw them, but as they truly existed. We rediscovered her authentic voice, and something remarkable happened. Not only did she eventually receive the promotion, but she no longer needed it to validate her worth. This is the power of understanding that your value is not determined by others. When you stand firmly in this truth, rejection loses its sting. Criticism becomes information rather than definition. Betrayal hurts, yes, but it doesn't destroy. I want you to try something right now. Close your eyes. Visualize the person who has hurt you most deeply. See their face clearly. Now imagine yourself standing tall, rooted in your worth, looking them directly in the eye. Not with anger or defensiveness, but with the quiet confidence of someone who knows exactly who they are. Feel the power in that posture. That power has always been within you. It cannot be taken away, only surrendered. Their value is not up for debate, not subject to vote, not determined by consensus. It is a foundation upon which everything else is built. Establish this truth in your heart, and you will have completed the first and most crucial step in handling those who hurt you. The second principle builds on the first. Transform hurt into growth. Every wound carries within it the seeds of wisdom. Every betrayal contains a lesson about trust. Every rejection offers insight into resilience. The question is, will you extract these gifts or will you waste the hurt? Most people experience pain and simply endure it. They grit their teeth and wait for it to pass. This is survival, but it isn't transformation. Transformation happens when you intentionally mine your pain for the growth it contains. I know a man who was abandoned by his business partner right before their company was about to secure major funding. The partner took clients, took intellectual property, took opportunities. For months, this man was consumed by bitterness. One day I asked him a simple question. What is this teaching you? At first he was offended. Teaching me? It's teaching me that people are selfish and can't be trusted. But gradually he began to see deeper lessons. He realized he had ignored early warning signs in his partner's behavior. He recognized patterns in his own decision-making that had contributed to the vulnerability. He discovered strengths within himself that he never knew existed. Resilience, creativity, the ability to rebuild from scratch. 3 years later, his new venture outperformed anything he had previously imagined. When I asked him about the betrayal, he said something profound. I wouldn't wish it on anyone, but I also wouldn't trade what I learned from it. This is the alchemy of transforming hurt into growth. It requires 3 specific steps. First, you must fully acknowledge the pain. Denial delays healing. Second, you must ask better questions. Not why did this happen to me, but what can I learn from this? And third, you must consciously apply those lessons to create a better future. Pain is inevitable, but growth is optional. The same fire that melts butter hardens steel. The difference isn't in the fire, it's in the material. When you choose to transform hurt into growth, you become stronger at the broken places. The Japanese art of kintsugi repairs broken pottery with gold, creating something more beautiful than the original. This can be your story. Your hurt, transformed by wisdom, can make you stronger, more compassionate, more effective than you ever would have been without it. Can I challenge you to identify one painful relationship in your life and ask, what is this teaching me? How can I use this lesson to grow? The answer to this question contains the seed of your future victory. The third principle is crucial for protecting yourself while remaining open to genuine connection. Set healthy boundaries without building walls. There's a vast difference between boundaries and barriers. Boundaries say, this is what I will and will not accept. Barriers say, no one gets close enough to hurt me again. Boundaries protect you while keeping you engaged with life. Barriers isolate you in the name of safety. After experiencing hurt, many people swing to extremes. Either they maintain no boundaries at all, repeatedly allowing the same mistreatment, or they wall themselves off completely, rejecting the possibility of new, healthier relationships. Neither approach serves your highest good. I once worked with a woman whose trust had been repeatedly violated in her closest relationships. Her response was to build an impenetrable fortress around her heart. She moved to a new city, changed her phone number, and avoided forming close ties. I'm done with people, she told me. It's just not worth the risk. For 2 years, she lived in this self-imposed isolation. She was safe, yes, but she was also withering. Humans are relational beings. We need connection like we need air. When we cut ourselves off from others, we cut ourselves off from a vital source of nourishment. Gradually, we worked on replacing her walls with healthy boundaries. She learned to trust her intuition about people. She developed clear standards for how she expected to be treated. She practiced communicating these standards calmly and directly. Most importantly, she learned to enforce consequences when boundaries were crossed. The transformation was remarkable. Today, her life is rich with meaningful connections, not despite her boundaries, but because of them. She's selective about who earns her trust, but she's no longer afraid to extend it to to those who deserve it. Healthy boundaries require three elements: clarity, communication, and consequences. You must be clear within yourself about what you will and won't accept. You must communicate these standards to others, not as threats, but as information. And you must be willing to enforce consequences when boundaries are violated. This isn't about controlling others. It's about taking responsibility for your own well-being. It's about teaching people how to treat you. When you set healthy boundaries, you don't just protect yourself from harm, you create the conditions for genuine intimacy to flourish. I want you to reflect on one relationship where your boundaries have been too porous. Where have you allowed treatment that diminishes you? Now imagine establishing a clear, firm boundary in that relationship. Feel the dignity in that stance. That is your right. That is your responsibility. The fourth principle addresses perhaps the most challenging aspect of handling those who hurt you. Practice strategic forgiveness. Note that I say strategic forgiveness, not emotional forgiveness. Many people misunderstand forgiveness as a feeling. They think they must somehow manufacture warm emotions toward those who have wounded them deeply. This is not what I'm advocating. Strategic forgiveness is a decision, not an emotion. It's a choice to release the hold that bitterness has on your life. It's an acknowledgement that resentment is a poison you drink yourself, hoping the other person will die. It's the recognition that your unforgiveness affects your potential far more than it affects the one who hurt you. I've seen countless individuals sacrifice their future on the altar of past grievances. Their conversations constantly circle back to old wounds. Their energy is consumed by replaying scenarios of hurt. Their creativity is hijacked by fantasies of vindication. Meanwhile, the people who hurt them have often moved on, unaffected by the grudge being held against them. There is a better way. Strategic forgiveness follows a three-stage process. First, you make the decision to forgive, not because the other person deserves it, but because you deserve peace. This decision might need to be made repeatedly, sometimes daily, until it takes root. Second, you release your expectations that the other person will acknowledge their wrong, make amends, or change their behavior. While reconciliation requires mutual effort, forgiveness is unilateral. You can forgive someone who never apologizes. You can forgive someone you will never see again. Third, you reclaim the energy that has been bound up in resentment and redirect it toward your purpose and vision. This is where the strategic element becomes most apparent. Unforgiveness diverts precious resources, mental, emotional, spiritual, away from your goals and dreams. Forgiveness reclaims these resources for productive use. Let me be clear about what forgiveness is not. It is not condoning what happened to you. It is not pretending you weren't hurt. It is not putting yourself in position to be hurt again. It is not necessarily reconciliation, which may or may not be appropriate depending on the situation. Forgiveness is simply your declaration of independence from the tyranny of bitterness. It's your refusal to allow past wounds to infect your present and future. I know some of you are thinking, you don't understand what was done to me. It's unforgivable. I don't minimize your pain. Some wounds are so deep, so severe, that they alter the very landscape of your life. But I've also seen people forgive the unforgivable and find freedom they never thought possible. Start where you are. Perhaps total forgiveness feels impossible right now. Begin with the decision to work toward it. Take the first step of acknowledging that unforgiveness hurts you more than it hurts them. This alone can begin to loosen the grip of bitterness on your heart. The fifth principle completes our framework. Refocus on your purpose and vision. Nothing neutralizes the effect of personal hurt like purposeful living. When you're clear about who you are and what you're here to accomplish, interpersonal pain takes its proper place, not as the defining reality of your life, but as one experience among many that shapes your journey. Many people become so absorbed in their hurt that they lose sight of their larger story. The wound becomes their identity, the betrayal becomes their narrative, the rejection becomes their defining moment. This is a tragedy of the highest order, not just because of the original hurt, but because of the potential that remains unrealized as a result. I recall working with a talented writer who had received a brutal critique from a mentor he respected deeply. The criticism was not just of his work, but seemed to attack his very identity as a writer. For 3 years, he didn't write a single word. The pain of that critique paralyzed his creativity and derailed his purpose. Through our work together, he began to reconnect with his original vision. He remembered why he started writing in the first place. He reconnected with a message he alone could deliver. Gradually, his focus shifted from the wound to the work. 6 months later, he completed the manuscript that would become his first published book. This is the power of refocusing on your purpose and vision. When you're clear about where you're going, obstacles, including interpersonal hurt, are reframed as challenges to overcome rather than stopping points. Listen carefully. Purpose is the antidote to pain. When you have a compelling why, you can endure almost anyhow. I've seen individuals withstand unimaginable betrayal and still achieve remarkable things because they refuse to allow the hurt to hijack their destiny. They understood that pain is inevitable, but distraction is optional. Most people underestimate how dramatically hurt can derail their focus. Even minor offenses can consume disproportionate mental and emotional bandwidth if we allow them to. I've witnessed brilliant, talented individuals who spend decades ruminating on past hurts, rehearsing conversations that never happened, and mentally constructing elaborate scenes of vindication. Meanwhile, their unique gifts remain unexpressed, their contributions undelivered. What a tragedy. The world needs what only you can give. Your purpose isn't just about you, it's about your contribution to humanity. When you allow hurt to distract you from your purpose, you don't just rob yourself, you rob the world of the value you were designed to add. Purpose provides perspective. When you're clear about your mission, interpersonal hurts are contextualized. They become part of your story, not the whole story. Think about any great achievement in human history. Behind it, you'll find individuals who experience rejection, betrayal, and opposition. The difference between those who made history and those who became bitter footnotes was their ability to keep their eyes fixed on the horizon of their vision rather than the pain of their present circumstance. I remember counseling a community leader who had been publicly humiliated by colleagues after proposing an innovative program. The betrayal was deep, the embarrassment acute. When we first spoke, he could barely maintain eye contact. His shame was so profound. How do I face people again? He asked me. How do I trust anyone after this? These were valid questions, but they were the wrong questions. They kept him circling in the pain rather than moving through it. Together, we refocused on the communities he was called to serve, the children whose futures hung in the balance, the families who needed the very program his colleagues had rejected. 6 months later, he launched his initiative independently. 2 years after that, it became a nationally recognized model, eventually adopted by the very organization that had rejected it. When I asked him how he managed to persevere through the hurt, he said something profound. I couldn't let those children's futures be sacrificed on the altar of my wounded ego. My purpose was bigger than my pain. That's the key. Your purpose must be bigger than your pain. When it is, hurt loses its power to define you. There are 3 specific techniques you can use to realign with your purpose after experiencing betrayal or hurt. First, reconnect with your core values. What matters most to you? What principles do you stand for, regardless of how others treat you? When you live from your values, you reclaim your autonomy from those who have hurt you. Second, revisit and perhaps revise your vision. How has this hurt experience shaped what you want to create in the world? Sometimes our deepest wounds become the source of our most meaningful contributions. The very thing that broke you may become the foundation of your greatest impact. In fact, many world-changing organizations, movements, and innovations were born directly from someone's pain. The founder who lost a loved one to disease and then dedicated their life to finding a cure. The educator who experienced learning challenges and created new methodologies to help others overcome similar obstacles. The advocate who endured discrimination and built systems to ensure others wouldn't face the same barriers. Your hurt doesn't disqualify you from your purpose. Properly processed, it may actually qualify you uniquely for it. Your wounds once healed become wisdom. Your tests become testimony. Your mess becomes your message. Third, take purposeful action, however small. Action breaks the paralysis of pain. It reestablishes your agency. It reminds you that while you cannot control what others do to you, you maintain complete control over your response. When hurt immobilizes you, start with tiny steps toward your purpose. You don't need to see the entire staircase, just the next step. Each action builds momentum. Each achievement, however small, reinforces your capacity to move forward despite the hurt. Soon the action itself becomes a kind of healing, not because it erases the pain, but because it ensures the pain doesn't get the final word. Many people wait until they feel better before re-engaging with their purpose. This is backward. Purposeful action is what helps you feel better. It's what shifts your focus from what was done to you to what you're doing with your life. Don't wait for motivation to precede action. Let action generate motivation. I want you to imagine yourself 5 years from now looking back on this current season of hurt. What will you be able to say you created from this experience? What contribution will have emerged from this crucible? See it clearly. Feel it deeply. Let that future pull you forward out of the grip of present pain. These 5 principles, recognizing your intrinsic value, transforming hurt into growth, setting boundaries without building walls, practicing strategic forgiveness, and refocusing on your purpose, form a complete system for handling people who hurt you. Apply them diligently, and you won't just survive interpersonal pain, you'll use it as fuel for an extraordinary life. I want to emphasize something critical. These principles are not merely theoretical concepts. They are practical, actionable strategies that have been tested in the crucible of real human experience. I've seen them transform lives across cultures, backgrounds, and circumstances. I've watched individuals apply them to navigate betrayals in business, heartbreaks in relationships, rejections in creative pursuits, and wounds in family dynamics. These principles work not because they're complicated, but because they align with fundamental truths about human nature. They work because they address both the internal and external dimensions of hurt. They acknowledge the reality of pain while refusing to grant it ultimate authority over your life. But here's what you must understand. These principles aren't sequential steps to be completed once and forgotten. They form an ongoing practice, a way of being in relationship with yourself and others. You will revisit them again and again as you encounter new hurts, new challenges, new growth opportunities. With each application, your mastery deepens, your resilience strengthens, your capacity expands. I've counseled individuals who initially rejected these principles as too simple or too difficult. You don't understand my situation, they'd say. The person who hurt me was truly evil. Or, I've tried forgiveness, it didn't work. I understand these objections. I honor the uniqueness of each person's pain. Yet I've seen these same individuals months or years later return with testimonies of transformation once they committed to applying these principles consistently. The most common mistake people make is expecting instant results. Healing from deep interpersonal wounds isn't an event, it's a process. There will be setbacks. There will be days when the hurt feels as fresh as ever. There will be moments when you question whether you're making any progress at all. This is normal. It's part of the journey. What matters isn't perfection, but persistence. Each time you choose to affirm your intrinsic value rather than allowing others to define you, you grow stronger. Each time you extract wisdom from your wounds rather than simply enduring them, you grow wiser. Each time you establish healthy boundaries rather than walls or doorless entries, you grow more discerning. Each time you practice strategic forgiveness rather than harboring bitterness, you grow freer. And each time you refocus on your purpose rather than your pain, you grow more purposeful. Small, consistent choices accumulate into profound transformation. The individuals who navigate hurt most successfully aren't those who never struggle, but those who refuse to abandon the process, even when it's difficult. They understand that healing isn't linear. They give themselves grace for the hard days while never surrendering their commitment to growth. I'll leave you with this. The people who hurt you don't get to write the final chapter of your story. They may have contributed a painful paragraph or even a difficult chapter, but the conclusion, the meaning extracted, the wisdom gained, the life built, that remains entirely in your hands. Your future is too valuable to be mortgaged to past hurts. Your potential is too great to be limited by others' actions. Your purpose is too important to be derailed by pain, however legitimate. The way you handle people who hurt you will determine not just the quality of your relationships, but the height of your achievements, the depth of your impact, and the legacy you ultimately leave. Choose well, choose purposefully, choose to transform hurt into a catalyst for your greatest becoming. You know, I've witnessed remarkable transformations when people embrace these principles. I think of the entrepreneur who was defrauded by his business partner and lost everything, who rebuilt not just a successful business, but a more fulfilling life by applying these very strategies. I think of the artist whose work was publicly ridiculed, who used that rejection as fuel to develop a revolutionary style that eventually transformed the industry. I think of the parent estranged from adult children, who instead of becoming bitter, channeled that pain into mentoring young people, creating a legacy of impact far beyond biological family. These aren't exceptional stories. They're examples of what's possible for anyone who chooses to master the art of handling those who hurt them. They're illustrations of the extraordinary capacity of the human spirit to not just overcome adversity, but to be transformed by it. What makes the difference? Is it circumstances? Absolutely not. Is it personality? No. Is it luck? Never. It's the conscious application of principles like the ones I shared with you today. It's the deliberate choice to respond to hurt with wisdom rather than reaction. It's the decision to use pain as a platform rather than a prison. I believe you have this capacity within you right now. The fact that you're here, engaging with these ideas, suggests you're ready to move beyond merely surviving hurt to transforming it. You're ready to write a new story, not one that denies or minimizes the pain you've experienced, but one that refuses to let that pain have the final word. It's time to rise above the hurt. It's time to reclaim your power. It's time to declare that pain may be inevitable in human relationships, but suffering is optional. I believe in your capacity to not just handle those who hurt you, but to transform that experience into the foundation of an extraordinary life. The choice is yours. and I believe you will choose wisely. Remember this always. Your response to those who hurt you doesn't just determine your past, it creates your future. Choose a response worthy of the destiny you were born to fulfill. Choose a response that generations after you will reference as a turning point. Choose to be not just a survivor of hurt, but a transformer of it. The world is waiting for what will emerge from your crucible. Don't disappoint us. Rise, transform, become. Your greatest contribution may very well lie on the other side of your deepest hurt.